policy continuity and consistency, and a shared responsibility between citizens and their government. Our leaders must possess the vision, skill, and determination to turn political aspirations into economic growth, inclusive prosperity, and lasting human well-being. As we've just said, Kwame Nkrumah embodied all these characteristics. We will do well to learn from his unparalleled record of leadership and vision as we face similar challenges today. On Nkrumah's leadership, Kwesi Botwe, of blessed memory, a friend and mentor to many of us in this room today, and one of our country's longest-serving finance ministers, once reflected that Nkrumah's imprint remains everywhere, in the macroeconomic and real sectors of Ghana's economy, in the banking and insurance industries, and in the country's basic infrastructure. Nkrumah believed in bold, transformative projects, and nothing exemplified this more than the Volta River project. It was the centerpiece of his strategy to industrialize Ghana's economy, providing the energy needed to boost factories, boost industry, and accelerate economic transformation. To me, Kwame Nkrumah was ahead of his time, and the inspiration he engendered and the vision he set forth were unmatched in African history. On January 22nd, on January 2022, 1996, Nkrumah inaugurated the Volta River massive Akosombo Dam, calling it his greatest dreams. 1 month later, he was deposed in a military coup. It may not be fortuitous that this national economic dialogue is taking place on days sandwiched tightly between that of Nkrumah's overthrow and our independence anniversary a few days from today. Kwame Nkrumah's spirit clearly is with us here today. In any case, what followed Nkrumah's overthrow was 15 years of political instability and economic mismanagement, marked by a destructive cycle of coups. When Gerald Rawlings' military regime took over in 1981, Ghana was in a crisis. To his credit, Rawlings stabilized the government after a couple of years, and before long, the economy started to recover. In his address to the opening of the third session of Parliament in 1985, Rawlings presented the first step of Ghana Vision 2020, a framework, quote, to realize the long-term vision of raising Ghana to the ranks of the middle-income countries of the world. At the time, the policy reforms pursued by the government were beginning to stabilize the economy. However, Ghanaians demanding a return to civilian rule rightfully pushed back against the authoritarianism and human rights abuses of the military regime. In response, Rawlings agreed to hold democratic elections in 1992, ushering in Ghana's Fourth Republic. But Rawlings remained skeptical. He feared that economic gains and stability could be compromised by premature democratization, but ultimately had little choice. The move to multi-party democracy system in 1992 split and crystallized our political landscape into two dominant political parties, the National Democratic Congress, or the NDC, and the new Patriotic Party, the NPP. This is where long-term, collectively held vision for Ghana's future began to unravel, and where policy continuity and consistency started to fade. The two parties have traded off the presidency and power with regularity, with the latest transition taking place just 2 months ago. These transfers have been peaceful, earning Ghana the reputation of a beacon of democracy in Africa and increasingly in the world. But our frequent transfers of power, no matter how peaceful, are not anchored in a long-term and widely shared vision for our economic transformation. Rather, they have come with interruptions in policy direction and programs, fragmented development efforts, wasted money, and a lack of sustained economic momentum. Intense political polarization has pushed us further and further apart when progress depends on working closer together. This brings me to the third necessary element for our future success, a shared responsibility between citizens and their government. I applaud President John Mahama's vision of resetting Ghana for jobs, accountability, and prosperity as a bold framework to help propel us forward. The next 4 years present a crucial window to lay a strong foundation for the Ghana we want in 2050. The 120-day social contract that President Mahama has laid before us identifies many concrete actions that will help us move forward towards our goals. But a contract can only exist between two or more people or two or more parties. Neither the government nor the people can achieve our vision for a transformed Ghana alone. We as Ghanaian citizens have a responsibility to take up the mantle of accountability and progress if we want to see lasting change. And based on my experience, I must admit, I'm concerned, but I'm also hopeful. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know, 3 years ago, under my leadership, the African Center for Economic Transformation, in collaboration with Ghana's leading think tanks, policy institutes, and civil society organizations, launched the Compass for Ghana's Political and Economic Transformation, commonly known as the Ghana Compact. Our goal is clear: to identify the structural barriers hindering Ghana's transformation and to define the future we, as Ghanaians, aspire to by 2050. This effort is rooted in a fundamental democratic principle: ultimate power lies with the people. Ghana's transformation depends on its citizens setting a bold vision for the nation and holding governments accountable and themselves accountable for delivering on that vision. The Compass addressed some of our most pressing policy issues. There are 7 core thematic areas: national development planning, fiscal, youth education and skills, gender equality, private sector development, health, and climate change. The Compact is built on analysis from Ghana's leading minds and institutions. It is informed by consultation with all major political parties, traditional and religious leaders, and the cross-section of Ghanaian visionaries. And it fully reflects engagement with citizens across 10 regions of our country to ensure these recommendations are grounded in the daily realities of Ghanaians of all backgrounds. All this effort culminated in the Citizens' Convention in June 2024 at the University of Ghana. It brought together 500 people representing the various stakeholders associated with the Ghana Compact. We convened to create a citizen declaration of a social contract with the government of Ghana, or the expectation to guide governance in our country as we approach the 100th year of our independence in 2057. For each of the 7 thematic areas of the Compact that I mentioned, a set of targets and key actions to achieve them by 2030 was also identified. The Convention agreed that a robust accountability mechanism must underpin such a transformation agenda, not merely a monitoring tool, but a fundamental framework designed to ensure that the commitments enshrined in the social contract are realized. Such a mechanism will be a way to track, evaluate, and ensure that the fulfillment of these commitments will foster a stronger democratic process, enhance transparency, and rebuild trust between the government and its citizens. Importantly, the compact emphasizes the obligations of all of us as citizens in moving towards a transformation underpinned by values such as patriotism, loyalty, honesty, and integrity, as well as civic education that starts early and is adequately funded. At the heart of this, to me, is a shift in our mindset to embrace the African personality that Kwame Nkrumah dreamt of more than 40 years ago when he said, Africa needs a new type of citizen, a dedicated, modest, honest, informed man, a man who submerges himself in the service of nation and mankind, a man who abhors greed and detests vanity, a new type of man whose humility is his strength and whose integrity is his greatest. I'm sure that if Kwame Nkrumah were with us here today, he will be saddened to see how far we have strayed from this vision. I share his disappointment. But I also know that we can turn this around. And please, allow me to add that I'm grateful to everyone who has engaged in the compact process. Thus far, allowing us to bring concrete citizen-driven solutions to our administration to complement its swift efforts to correct the course we are in. And of course, we will continue our partnership, particularly with the National Demand Planning Commission under the leadership of the veteran Neil Moore Thompson. Excellencies, I have shared where we have come from, and with the rest of my time today, I would like to look forward, taking lessons from our history and from the Ghana Compact process to help inform what we do next. I will start by highlighting 4 critical areas where the Ghana take forward the recommendations from this national economic dialogue and support the goals and objectives of President Mahama's reset agenda. First is on governance. We need a code of good governance to enhance transparency and accountability in government operations, particularly in procurement and auditing, while fostering active citizen engagement in governance process. The second is on campaign and political party financing. The increasing monetization of our politics has driven incidents of capture and pervasive corruption, as well as cronyism, leading to poor service delivery and accountability. This is the elephant in the room that we seldom see or talk about at meetings such as the one we are having here today and tomorrow. The third fight against galamsey. Today, 60% of our major water bodies are polluted, the most visible consequence of galamsey or illegal mining. But the environmental catastrophe runs deeper than polluted rivers. A 2022 report by the Center for Democratic Development named illegal mining as one of the primary sources of illicit funding for election campaigns and political party financing. And the fourth is the overarching goal of transformation. If we are to reach a middle income status in 20 years or less, we must grow our economy into a highly diversified one that is competitive in export markets, is highly productive in the use of labor, and capital and deploys enhanced technology towards improved well-being of our people. In about 6 months, the Ghana Compact will convene the second Citizens Convention to assess the progress we are making. We also review a public online dashboard created in collaboration with the NDPC that will track development progress, including social contract commitments and later government action over the long term, extending beyond this government to future administration. So let me offer the Compact as a platform for engagement between policymakers and citizens going forward. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I yield the floor to the Finance Minister, I must raise one final forward-looking issue: how to sustainably finance our transformation. We find ourselves in repeated budgetary and debt crisis. Our green to trade orders have eroded our middle class and put our most vulnerable citizens even more at risk. As we approach the conclusion of our 17th IMF bailout early next year, the fundamental question remains: will this be the last, or are we simply paving the way for an 18th bailout or a 19th? Remember, Ghana has had IMF programs for 40 of its 68 years since independence, about the mix of external financing and domestic resources that are so critical to our development. Let me illustrate with an example. The total amount of $1.7 billion programmed as support from the World Bank and the IMF this year is less than what we spent to subsidize our long-failing electricity sector. It is a staggering comparison. Still, external financing will be an essential piece of our development for the foreseeable future, and this is not without precedence. The East Asian miracle would not have been possible without foreign assistance. Take South Korea, for example. In the 30 years between 1946 and 1976, it received near $6 billion from the U.S. alone, a huge amount at the time, with very few conditions, that allowed the country to define and pursue a homegrown vision and a strategy of its own. Today, South Korea is one of the world's leading economies. But the global landscape is shifting, and we need to shift with this. Recent policy shifts, including those of the Trump administration in the U.S. and other several European countries, have introduced uncertainties into the prevailing development aid architecture. Above all, the global financial architecture is failing to meet Africa's needs. It needs a fundamental overhaul to be fit for purpose for today. Ghana has been part of a strong coalition of countries, institutions, and advocates pushing for African priorities in the global financial system. The coalition has had some success, but we must not wait for the world to solve this problem for us. No country has developed on the back of aid alone. It is time to look inward at how to raise revenues and fund our own development, so that our dependence on external finance does not continue to hold us back. Our private sector can be a key contributor, as instruments such as blended finance and public-private partnerships offer great untapped potential. And remittances from the Ghana diaspora have consistently outstripped ODA and FDI flows for many years. Now, underscoring the importance in our financing mix. The upshot of all this is that Ghana needs a comprehensive financing strategy, one that effectively aligns different funding sources to our vision for economic transformation. Such a strategy should include three fundamentals. First, a Ghana development finance platform that will coordinate the flow of development assistance to Ghana, including assessing the progress we are making in our policy reforms and programs, and ensuring that resources are not duplicated, wasted, or misaligned with our developmental vision. Second, a long-term agreement with our major external partners. A particular instructive example of this is the World Bank's agreement with Pakistan. The bank has committed to providing $20 billion in financial support over 10 years, a shift from the traditional short-term partnership approach in Ghana and other countries. The basis for this longer-term approach in Pakistan is the realization that after the recent crisis, the country needs to break away from its past pattern of stop-and-go reform cycles and instead commit to a credible, more stable developmental course. Third, a comprehensive domestic revenue mobilization plan that curbs illicit financial flows, harnesses remittances, and ensures fair taxation to fuel our public service and investment in our own progress. The overall goal of this strategy will be to mobilize significant increased financing, coupled with rigorous expenditure management in the next 10 years to support our development, underpinned by a strong accountability mechanism. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I hope that over the next 2 days, our discussion will focus on concrete policy reforms, institutional strengthening, the strategic investment to stabilize the economy, drive growth, and create jobs in the medium to long term. I applaud President Mahama for putting this dialogue together at a critical moment in his administration. I'm honored to have been able to contribute to the National Economic Dialogue Committee's work as one of its 8 members. And I salute you, Ishmael, for the outstanding job you have done as chairman of the committee in such a short time. Finally, let me mention Rishi Sharma, an author, fund manager, and columnist. columnist for the Financial Times, who wrote a book in 2013 called Breakout Nations, and predicted the countries that will become the next economic miracles by 2050. Not a single Nigeria. Therefore, my question for all of us is a simple one. What would it take for Ghana to become a breakout nation by 2050? It is my hope that this national economic dialogue will provide the roadmap. Thank you for your attention.
Please put your hands together for Dr. K.Y. Amoako for that comprehensive background to this very important summit. And I like the fact that you all applauded when he asked the question, will Ghana be in the list? And I think the answer is yes, if we do the right things here. Let's dance it up for him one more time. Thank you, Doc. We really appreciate your work. We're still here live at the 2025 National Economic Dialogue, and Dr. Amoako gave us 3 strategies: visionary leadership, policy consistency, and shared responsibility between citizens and leaders, which is why we're all gathered here. There are also 3 objectives for today's program. The first is to communicate the true state of Ghana's economy to stakeholders. That is what the subject of the next presentation would be. So I'd like to now welcome the Minister of Finance and MP for Ejumaku Enyan ACM, the Honorable, he's not the main uncle Atu, there's an older uncle Atu, but he's the brother Atu, KCL Atu Forsen, to present to us the true state of Ghana's economy. Please put your hands together. So your brother Atu, since Uncle Atu is still there. Thank you, sir.
Your Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Ladyship, the Chief Justice, our Chairman of the Council of State, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, other members of the Organizing Committee, members of the Diplomatic Committee, and our fellow countrymen and women, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to welcome you to this August gathering. Your presence here is a testament to your love for country and the resilience of our collective unity and purpose. It's an ample demonstration of our ability to put aside our differences when the national duty calls and binds us together in search for answers to the problems that confront us as a country. Today's gathering and the subsequent consensus that will be forged from these stimulating discussions will follow and will lend us the opportunity to be able to put together a policy that will guide all of us. This is a proof to the old saying that adwen onye nyimpa kro ne tirim, to wit, knowledge does not reside in the head of one person. I wish to acknowledge the chairman of the organizing committee, elder statesman Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and the distinguished members of the committee for working tirelessly to put together this important dialogue. It is with great anticipation that we embark on this first national economic dialogue in over a decade, a moment in our national history. This dialogue is not only a significant and defining moment, but it's also an important reenactment of our history when the nation assembled at a similar forum in Senchi some 10 years ago. Today, we set out to attempt to resolve economic puzzle of much greater magnitude and scale than those that confronted us some years and chart a course towards a more prosperous future for our citizens. It is my hope and prayer that the lessons that will emerge from this conversation of recent past, the panel discussions, workshops, and breakout sessions of our time, the resultant prescription and the critical policy initiatives will drive structural reforms and our transformation agenda to reset our economy and secure the prosperity of our citizens. As we embark on this development of our medium-term plans, commencing with the forthcoming budget on March 11th, the insight, expertise, and experiences will be garnered from these deliberations will prove very invaluable assets that will shape our collective path for our future. In this time of crisis, has been borne by every Ghanaian, particularly the poor, from severe currency depreciation to hyperinflation, from haircut to steep tax increases, from rising inflation, from rising fuel costs to rising electricity prices, and very increasing interest rates. Fellow countrymen and women, the economic crisis isn't over. Indeed, the full length of our current crisis is still unraveling by the day. The situation requires significant sacrifice from all of us to stem the bleeding. His Excellency the President has taken the lead and has given the strongest signal to our commitment to sacrifice. In furtherance to his commitment, we have streamlined and realigned the size of government, evidenced by the reduction of ministers of state to 60 from the initial. We have followed. This we have also followed with significant budget cuts that will be announced soon for the office of the President, and further prohibition of the first-class travels by all government officials. Initial steps in our ongoing journey towards fiscal discipline and good governance. Mr. Chairman, let me seize this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organized labor and the Ghana Employers Association, minimum wage and base pay. I wish at this point to reaffirm to labor that the NDC government headed by His Excellency President Mahama, will commit to transparency, accountability, and good governance. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, would now crave your indulgence to take you to a presentation on the state of the Ghanaian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, taking you to only 4 chapters: the growth trajectory, the long-term trends, and the urgent need for us to reset, the fiscal challenges to reset, and I'll make some proposal for the way forward. Your Excellency, truth be told, the causes of the 2022 macroeconomic crisis can be traced well before COVID-19 and the deterioration of global economic conditions. In fact, when these shocks struck, the Ghanaian economy was already in a very precarious state. Ghana has experienced a strong growth since 2000s, beginning 2000. Strong economic gains placed Ghana in the top 10 fastest growing countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, reaching middle income status in the year 2011. Between the year 2008 to 2019, Ghana's economy expanded by about 6.8% per year, above regional and global averages of 4.4% and 2.7% respectively. GDP per capita doubled, averaging 3% growth per year. However, the growth was driven by oil and mining, accompanied by huge debt accumulation. Oil production began in the year 2011 and contributed steadily to economic growth, representing 5% of GDP on average. Moreover, between the year 2013 and 2019, nearly 20% of GDP growth was directly attributed to mining, in fact, gold mining. Simultaneously, the growth acceleration was sustained by increased fiscal imbalances, which fueled debt accumulation. The fiscal deficit averaged about 4% of GDP between the year 2008 and 2019, more than twice as much as in the year 2000, between 2000 and 2007. Public debt went from 20% of GDP after a peak in the year 2006 to 93% at the central government level in the year 2022. Although these factors led to increased vulnerabilities to the commodity prices and shocks, Ghana failed to take action. The growth, as we have seen, has not translated into structural transformation and productivity. There has been very limited progress in structural transformation, with the agriculture sector still representing 1/5 of GDP and also 1/3 of the labor force, about 33%. Manufacturing productivity remains relatively low and higher, such as commercial mining and construction. Employing few people, the informal sector and self-employment have absorbed a large share of the labor force, even among the higher income quintiles. This is contrary to what we've seen in some advanced countries and medium-sized countries. Ghana's export basket has remained concentrated in simple products with low value addition. The economy is dominated by value addition, which restricts the potential for economic diversification and growth. Ghana's top 3 exports, gold, crude oil, and cocoa, accounted for 85.1% of the country's total export in the year 2024. High productivity manufacturing is relatively small and has not exploited the opportunities that we have with ECOWAS, AGUA, EPA, and AFTA. Commodities highlights the need for strategic effort to diversify the economy and reduce dependency on a narrow range of products, taking advantage of global value chain. Your Excellency, has not increased at all. Poverty is more prevalent in lower elevated slums, where communities experience higher fertility, lower school attendance, very low access to sanitary services, and vulnerable to natural disaster. In the year 2024, Ghana's inequality was worse than Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and other neighboring countries, unfortunately. I'll now take you to long-term trends and the urgent need for us to reset. Your Excellency, the current growth model will not be sufficient to meet Ghana's needs and aspirations if nothing is done. And it will mean that we have to take an urgent steps to correct this trend. Ghana needs to take advantage of its demographic dividend. With 500,000 young people joining the labor force each year, 500,000. Within the current growth model, growth will reduce to only 3.8%, which represents 2.4% GDP per capita in less than 15 years from now. There's an urgent need to implement ambitious reforms to reset the economy in the next 4 years. Otherwise, we'll go down in terms of growth. Transforming Ghana's economic growth from one based on factor accumulation and natural resource depletion to one driven by productivity and human capital is very critical. Economic growth can be sustained over 6.5% of GDP, fully offsetting headwinds from demographic trends and the decline in natural resource depletion if we are to adjust from the current baseline situation. Your Excellency, the graph on the left-hand side shows the baseline situation from now to the year 2050 using the baseline and where the growth will be. We've adjusted for moderate reforms and we have also adjusted for ambitious reforms. The moderate reforms will largely mean that we will have to quickly bring on stream the Pecan field, and that will adjust from where we are and improve the growth trend. Whereas ambitious reforms will mean we'll have to do a lot more than adjusting from the Pecan oil fields. Without comprehensive reforms, unfortunately, Ghana will only achieve upper middle income status after the year 2050. And we cannot wait till the year 2050 before we become an upper middle income country. There's an urgent need for comprehensive policies and institutional reforms that enhance productivity, improve the quality of infrastructures, services, and capital, and workforce skills. These reforms have the potential of transforming Ghana within a generation, tripling its per capita income by the year 2050. There is the need to reorient fiscal policy to support the growth and structural transformation. Your Excellency, again, the graph on the left-hand side shows the baseline and the moderate reforms and ambitious reforms. Unfortunately, looking at where we are going, if nothing is done, Ghana will only become an upper middle income country in the year 2050. Reforms will be able to become an upper middle income country in the year 2042. But if we are to do well and introduce very ambitious reforms, Ghana will indeed become an upper middle income country 2038. And we have no choice. We will have to introduce measures to reset our economy. There's an urgent need for economic transformation to reset Ghana. And we have 7 chapters to reset our economy. Chapter 1, the economy and creating prosperity for all. Chapter 2 is jobs for all. Chapter 3 is Ghana's framework for industrial revitalization, support and transformation. We call it the Ghana First. The 4th one will be powering growth through infrastructure development. 5, investing in people for inclusive growth. 6, restoring good governance and combating corruption. And 7, from economic diplomacy. Your Excellency, we face fiscal challenges, and indeed there are opportunities to support this reset. First, I will take you through public expenditure, otherwise called public spending. fiscal space, as we speak, is